Another thing I kind of like about this dead zone setting is that I feel like it lets you get a little heavier on the throttle, which is going to be more like what you're used to from a lot of other racing games. Like you still can't be ridiculous with it. You still have to kind of ease into the to full throttle in most cases, or you risk spinning out. But you can definitely get on it a lot more than you can with the default settings or a lower dead zone setting than say this 37 that we're using right now. Yeah, let's try to do one more clean lap and then I'll scuff this thing up a little bit and give it a rough ride so you can see how there aren't any frame rate issues if you disable the force feedback on the Xbox One controller. I really want to document this at least somewhat so that it gives the developer something that they can look at in terms of trying to actually solve this problem. Because I think, honestly, given the current state of the game, this is probably the single biggest issue that I've come across. So I'd definitely like to see it get fixed, because I think it would just make the game that much better. But I guess I can talk a little bit while I finish this clean lap about other things that I've noticed having put some more time into the game over this past weekend. I'd say the other thing that's kind of jumping out at me right away, which I didn't really anticipate being an issue, but I kind of see it as being an issue now that I've had the chance to really put some hours into the game. I noticed that when you go to set up online events, there doesn't seem to be any way to create multi-race events. And I feel like that's kind of a mistake. Uh, like especially with the focus on cups and championships and such in the career mode, it seems kind of weird that you don't seem to be able to translate that style of racing into multiplayer. I know with the group of people that I typically would play games like Grid Autosport with, that's kind of a point that you get to with a lot of these racing games where single events just stop being interesting because basically you can't have any ebb and flow, right? Like whoever wins wins, whoever gets second, and then you set up a new event and it kind of breaks uh, the sort of chain of competition. And the nice thing about being able to do uh, custom cups, for lack of a better term, is that you can actually set up two or three or even four races in a row that may lean towards different players' strengths and weaknesses and give everybody kind of a chance to succeed and whatnot. So I'd kind of like to see that feature added to this game. I think it's something that should theoretically be pretty easy to do. Here, let me drive over these bumps. So that's like something that would have sent the game into a total stall out in terms of frame rate drops and audio clipping and stuff like that with the force feedback enabled. Like taking a hard bump like that would have really just freaked the game completely out if the force feedback were turned on. And I'll do it here again on this turn. I'll jump the speed bumps kind of on purpose so you can see how clean this is. Without the force feedback, you really get no stutter or frame rate issues or anything. And even if I start bouncing off these walls and just really start beating up the car, like all this stuff would have completely caused frame rate hitching and sound dropping out and stuff with the force feedback on. But as you can see here, it's perfectly content to let me do this all day as long as the force feedback's off. So let me just show you what I mean by that, just so you know I'm not crazy. So let me go ahead and exit out of here. And I'm going to go back to controls. And we're going gonna just go down here to force feedback, and we'll just turn it up to 50. We won't even turn it up all the way, just 50%. And then let's go back and run that same session again with the force feedback on. And hopefully I won't have to do too much for you to see the issue that I'm talking about. I'll just hop the speed bumps on this first turn. See if that's enough to get it going. Okay, so I'm getting the vibration in the controller, which you would expect. But kind of the symptom of this problem is that even when I get back on the straight road where there's no reason for the controller to vibrate, it continues vibrating. So that's kind of like the first sort of telltale sign that there's a problem. And then let me go ahead and jump these next couple. I think the speed bumps sometimes aren't quite enough to trigger the issue. But let me try it again here. Okay, so here we go. Now this is weird. I don't feel like there was a patch for this game. Oh wait, there it is. Okay. Yeah, there's the stutter. So there's the audio clipping out. That's exactly the same kind of stuff I was doing just before, but with the force feedback turned on, even at 50%, you see all this hitting and frame rate stuff just going nuts. So it took all of that time with me just sitting here for the controller to finally stop vibrating. And now I'll be able to pull out and things will be back to normal. But you can see what a huge issue that is. It's definitely something that needs to be addressed for people who do want to play with force feedback. Because right now, your only option is just to turn it completely off. Because otherwise that sort of thing happens as soon as you have any contact with anything. And it doesn't seem to matter if it's speed bumps. I mean, speed bumps seem to affect it a little less, honestly. But it doesn't really seem to matter if it's just getting off road a little bit, getting a little bit into the marbles, or if it's hitting other cars or getting any kind of contact with the wall or the railings or whatever. It all seems to have a cumulative effect where the more of it you do, the worse of it that it gets. So again, what you want to do to solve this is just go in and disable your force feedback on your Xbox One controller. And I'll just let this thing freak out one more time so you can see it. There's the... So the controller is still vibrating here, but it's at least settled down enough that I can pull out again and talk again. But you know, obviously this is not ideal, so we're going to go out and the controller's still vibrating out here in the menus even. We're going to head out here to the configuration screen and disable that so that this becomes playable again. go ahead down here to force feedback and turn that off. And as long as you put it down to 0, that won't happen. You can hit into as much stuff as you want and you will not see any frame rates, drops, or sound problems or anything. So, at least with the Xbox One controller. Your mileage may vary with other controllers, but this is the solution I've come up with for those issues when using the Xbox One controller. And again, just to reiterate, this, as far as tweaking these Xbox One controller default settings go, the only thing I'm doing other than turning the force feedback off is just turning the steering dead zone down to 38, which it auto adjusts down to 37 once you save the settings. And that's just all based off of starting from the classic Xbox One controller preset. And that's pretty much it.